Anything you resist, it persists.
In reality, there is the answer within. You know what is right to do. You know what is good for you. And the challenge is to follow through on that.
What is to be gained by carrying yesterday?
Hello and welcome to Elder Wisdom, Stories from the Green Bench. I'm your host, Erin Davis, and along with my 85-year-old co-host, Lloyd Hetherington, I get the honor and pleasure of talking with residents at Schlegel Village's retirement and long-term care homes. Oh, I hope you heard our most recent podcast, episode 11, where Lloyd Hetherington stepped into the spotlight, and this educator, theologian, published writer, father, grandfather, and widower told his story. It was wonderful. Do check it out, as you can with all our previous episodes, through the elderwisdom.ca website. The green bench is a real bench, but it's also a metaphor, a symbol for the place of reverence in which we hold our elders, those residents who share their lives and loves, wit and wisdom. Every one of our guests has a story to tell, or several, and in the case of today's guest, a song to sing. David Boehm is a resident of Pine Haven Nursing Home in Waterloo. This isn't David's first time in front of a mic. He's been providing entertainment for audiences for most of his life. But now this musical storyteller turns the focus inward and gives us some glimpses into a most interesting journey. What drew us to him is David's spirit of living life to its fullest, even as he battles a difficult health challenge in his 74th year of life. He's all about connection. And that's what we're doing right now with Elder Wisdom and Stories from the Green Bench. David, I love to think that as you and Lloyd and I are sitting together here virtually having this conversation, that you're there in kind of a tie-dye T-shirt. There's the air of patchouli in the room, and everything is just sort of a cool vibe. Now, don't correct me on that, okay? When we were reading over your bio, I was going, oh, there's a lot of really interesting stuff in your life, David. Where do you want to start?
It doesn't matter. We're going to start at the beginning.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah, chronological.
I was born when my family lived in Elmira in a little apartment over top of a blacksmith shop. When I was 3, which was 1951, we moved to Hickory Street in Waterloo. When I was in kindergarten, I fell off a railing outside of the school and broke my collarbone. Didn't find out that it was broken straight away, and I ended up getting osteomyelitis in my collarbone, which meant I had to have 2 surgeries on it, and one of them was that I had to go to Sick Kids in Toronto. Then when I did come back home, it used to be everybody took music lessons. My brother was stuck with the accordion, and I got to play the Hawaiian guitar, which is not very useful in most situations. But it gave me an insight into the guitar, and it wasn't long before I got what they call a Spanish guitar. Hawaiian guitar you play with a bar, and a Spanish guitar you play with your fingers, and it's the one that's most common today.
Mm-hmm. That led you into a band. You got into a high school rock band, and you did a lot of cover stuff. Who did you most want to be? Who was the band that you thought, we want to be them?
Beatles. It was Beatles.
Well,
Everything
of course.
was Beatles. I went into grade 13. This was back when I had a grade 13.
Mm-hmm.
And about a week into it, I had a fight with my dad. And I left home. I was out on the street, had no place to live. I relied on my good friends. I was sleeping on people's porches. I remember sleeping in a pool hall under the table. And then I had another friend whose father got me a job at a factory and gave me a room in his home, rented me a room for me to live in. So I I had good friends. Without them, I wouldn't have survived. I moved on to different things of work, and eventually I got married. I got married in June of '69. Prior to getting married, my wife to be, she got pregnant and had a son. Her parents would not allow us to raise him. They demanded that we put him up for adoption, so we did, grudgingly. And we got married on June 21st of '69, the summer of '69, the longest day, the first day of summer. And 5 days later, I believe it was, the band had to go to Hidden Valley, which is a ski resort in Huntsville. So the band had to move up there because we got a summer-long job up there. We had lots of time to practice. We got really good, tight, as they say. I think we had 2 nights off all summer.
Wow.
On the weekends, the more famous bands, the bigger bands, would come up from Toronto. And so we had an opportunity to meet and play with them.
Will you drop some names? Who were some of the bands who came up from Toronto?
Oh, geez. Now you got me. Taxi, I think, was one.
Okay.
5-man electrical band.
Oh, wow. I'm a Stranger Here and Signs. Yeah, sure.
Then there was one from Kitchener that would come up as a Major Hoople's boarding house.
And your band was called the Town Choir.
And that was because there were 5 of us in the band and everybody sang. And it was like vocal harmony, kind of. So that's why we made it the choir. So we spent the summer up there. We came back. We played the fall. We played all over southern Ontario and down at the New York State. And then in Christmas, we went up and spent another, like the whole Christmas break. We were the house band again. So that was good. But it was hard on the marriage. It was mostly my fault. I was not taking care of what I should have been, and we ended up getting a divorce. But before we did that, we had a little girl, Samantha, who currently lives in Calgary. She's wonderful. But when she was about 3 years old, that's when I got divorced and I moved to Toronto. I got a job. I was service manager at Steve's Music Store in downtown Toronto, Queen and Spadina. It was one of the big music stores down there, and the one that when famous bands would come in to play gigs and stuff and they had any problems, we were one of the top 2 or 3 that they would call if they needed repairs fixed. Anyway, so I got to meet some of these guys, like Eddie Van Halen.
Oh, come on.
The Hollies, the Moody Blues, the Police, and it was really neat to get to be backstage with them and talk with them, and it was an exciting part of my life. I was there for 12 years in Toronto. Then my boss and I had a falling out, and I ended up moving back to Waterloo, where I started a small company which I called Aquatic Designs, and which I set up and maintained aquariums in doctors' and dentists' offices.
Now that's a departure, David. How does one get from servicing instruments and being backstage at a Van Halen concert to coming up with aquarium designs? There's no straight line there.
I had an interest in fish, and while I was in Toronto, I had joined Willowdale Aquarium Society, and one of their meetings, a fellow named Erling Holm, who was the assistant curator of ichthyology and herpetology at the Royal Ontario Museum, was a speaker. And it was talking about native fishes, the fishes that are in the waters around us here in Ontario. And I got really interested in that. And couple of weeks after that, I went down to the Royal Ontario Museum and talked to him, and I ended up becoming a volunteer at the ROM. And I had Thursday and Friday mornings off from Steve's Music Store, so I spent my Thursday and Friday mornings at the museum identifying fishes. And I started to go on field trips with them, and my interest in fishes in aquariums kind of grew out of that. Besides doing the aquariums in offices and in private homes, I put some large aquariums into Science North in Sudbury, in the Algonquin Park Visitors Center. I put two, I think, 400-gallon tanks in there. And I built a pond, a portable pond, if you can believe it, for a magazine called Ontario Out of Doors that they used at the spring fishing show in Toronto. This pond was a stream with a pond at the end of it. The whole thing was like 40-some-odd feet long. It was meant to be used for 1 year. I think they ended up using it for 4 or 5 years. They had it all filled with trout, and they would use it to demonstrate how to use different lures to catch these fish. And it was quite popular, I'm told. Another offshoot from the Royal Ontario Museum in 1999, they wanted to do a survey of the flora and fauna of the waters of the Walpole Island Delta. Walpole Island is where the river runs into Lake St. Clair. It's a big delta, a marsh. So I spent the summer down there with 2 native helpers, and we sampled all the fish, the plants, and the invertebrates. We sampled them all and recorded them and brought specimens back to the Royal Ontario Museum.
And this isn't something that you studied.
No.
It came out of your love and your inspiration, and a spirit that we understand from you, David, is that you just do it. You go for it, and if you don't go for it, it won't happen.
I learned everything I needed for that by being a volunteer at the Royal Ontario Museum. They told me how to identify this and that and the other thing and what I needed to do. I learned that in I guess maybe 4 years before I actually went down on this field trip, and they thought that I knew enough to handle the job, and it was a lot of fun. I had absolutely no contact with Native peoples up until that time, and I enjoyed it a lot.
That speaks well for you, David. You have such a natural curiosity. You just don't stand by. You really take a good look at what is happening around you, and you just soak it in like a sponge. That's remarkable.
Yeah, and when I came back from that was just like a summer contract. So I came back, and a good friend of mine worked at M&T Printing Group. I joined them, and I spent 17 years working with them as a computer programmer. So I did that for 17 years. Then I retired, and then I found out that I had come down with cancer, multiple myeloma, which is the cancer that killed my father. And fortunately, the drugs today are much better than what they had in 1988 when my father died. So I was able to survive, and but I did end up going into nursing home because I needed medication, and I needed the nurses to be constantly on. If they just left me alone to do the medication, I would forget, or I would, mess things up.
I'm curious, David, where did you pick up your computer skills?
I taught myself.
That just verifies again, you're a person who observes the world, and you have a healthy curiosity.
Yeah, I'm curious. I like science. I like math, and so it was me teaching myself. I remember when I was service manager at Steve's Music Store, I remember we got our first computer was an Apple IIe. Well, I knew nothing about it when we first got it, but I figured out how to work it and how to write code for it, and then we moved on to the more current ones, and it was just a matter of trial and error, read books, check out the internet, and see what's available, and you teach yourself, you know.
I love that spirit, David. I really do. You just go for it. I like the idea of trial and error.
Well, in some cases, trial and error may not be such a good thing, but I think I stayed away from most of those.
Most of the errors. Yeah.
Yeah.
Errors that teach you as well. That's a step not to do. So you're learning even from that.
Yeah, when you learn that way, you tend to retain it.
Right.
Wow. And you are the very definition of an adventurous spirit, and that's what drew us to you today as a guest. You know, someone willing to take risks. You marched to your own drum, or your own guitar solo in this case.
That's right.
Yeah, and there's this piece in misswood.eu that just about defines you perfectly. The adventurous person is special because they never say no to stepping out of their comfort zones. They don't just dream. They go after those dreams, and so much more. These people tend to learn by experiencing life, and there are no bad experiences in life, just lessons to be learned. Do you think, David, that even at 73, and with everything you're going through right now with COVID and with your cancer, that this has kept you young at heart, this spirit that Lloyd alluded to, the always wanting to learn, the curiosity?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, on my laptop right now, I have CorelDRAW, and I've been dreaming, and I have plans for if I were to next week win one of the big lotteries, like the 40 million or something, to start up a company, and I would use people that I know from my past, who are good, smart people. And I would see that they had the wherewithal to make the most of their lives, to give them the money to do what they are able to do. And so, like, I'm just spending my time dreaming, like, okay, who could do this? Who could do that? So I'm not done yet.
Oh, don't ever finish. Keep dreaming your dreams.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Those dreams today can become reality in the future. Never stop dreaming.
No.
And don't stop talking about it either, because, you know, sometimes just putting it out there, David, makes it one step closer to reality. Hey, while we're talking about technology and dreams and getting messages out there, let's talk about what tech has done to keep you connected to your loved ones, to your girlfriend who isn't with you physically these days, and how your embrace of all the opportunities and possibilities which you proved early on when you started with computers ahead of the curve, how that has made your life better today, David. Can we look at that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The technology, like I said, is wonderful when it works, but we can usually get it to work. And if we didn't have the technology, things like Facebook and that, they can be used for a lot of bad crap, but they can also be used for a lot of good stuff. I'm on Facebook. My friends know they can get a hold of me on Facebook. With Jane, my partner of, it's getting close to 40 years now.
Wow.
I've only been able to see her physically once since COVID started. And that's terrible. But we talk on the phone every night. I am so grateful for that. And there are people here who don't know much about technology, some of the older residents. But the managers here go out of their way to make sure that if those people want to talk to their kids, they will set them up and work the technology for them so they can have face-to-face on the computer. And I can't imagine what that would be like, not to see your person. That would be just terrible. So we have the technology here and people are using it, and it's making our lives so much better. I mean, to not have that and to be just locked away like they would do in the 40s or something. I can't imagine that. That would be terrible.
Yeah. And even if you're not among the 72% or so over 65 who say that they are confident using technology, psychiatrists are saying that, just connecting with downloading game apps you can play online or a virtual movie night, or just picking up the phone. You said you talk to Jane just about every night. And now,
yeah.
And you said you phone her. Is it by phone or with video? And which do you prefer, David?
That depends on how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling crappy, then I'd rather just have a phone.
Yeah.
But if I'm feeling good and, I feel like I look good and things are going okay, then video is better. Yeah. But you got to have that contact. And I'm just so glad that we are able to. We live in a time when that contact is available. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of bad stuff goes over.
Yeah.
Technology does a lot of bad things, but you got to take the bad with the good.
And speaking of contact, David, let's go back to the story of giving up your son for adoption. He has gotten back in touch with you, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. He got back in touch with me 4 years ago or something like that. And he has 3 kids, which means I have 3 grandkids.
Yeah.
But I don't see them. I see him and his wife. But the people that raised him, they're still alive. And he is concerned that if he brings me into the equation right now, that just might upset their family dynamic somewhat. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to wait, and when they pass on, then we'll see about me having much more contact with my grandkids. It's interesting because my son has a lot of the characteristics that I had. He plays guitar. Oh. He likes to build models, which I did. I built model cars and model planes and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of similarities there. And his kids play musical instruments too. So I'm looking forward to the day when I can really get to meet them properly and spend some time with them.
Clearly, some of those strands of DNA are guitar strings.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Oh.
And your daughter in Calgary, are you using technology to stay in touch with her or to keep the family ties there as well, David?
It's basically just email and the phone. Yeah, we keep in touch. I don't believe she's going to have any children, but she's a good girl and I love her.
Aww.
And I wish she were here, but she has a good job out there, and she's doing all right. Back in 1969, in the heyday of the band, I wrote a song. It's called Smile. Mm-hmm. And I took my acoustic guitar and put it on tape, and I took it to the band and played it for them, and they liked it, but somehow nothing ever happened with it, and I lost that tape. Then a few years ago, Jim Reinhardt, the other guitar player in the band, called me up and came over to see me, and he found that tape in his junk. So I took it to a guy in Waterloo here who specializes in this stuff. He was able to download it onto a CD. And so we had a good copy of my just single voice and single guitar. Jim also had, in his basement, he had built a digital recording studio. So he and the organ player, Ralph, got together and recorded Smile. And this is my song. It fits perfectly with what's going on in the world today.
The world needs a big smile right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
If the stars can't turn you on, they surely dream. ease your mind. Then you'll waken to the dawn of another day, the dawn of another peaceful time. Remember to smile once in a while. If you'll only let your smile shine through and make it your style.
Perfect. A perfect way to end with a smile for a gentleman who has had such an interesting life and just keeps on going, despite it all and because of it all, and doesn't stop dreaming. Just before we let you go, what advice do you have for younger people listening today? Not necessarily rockers, but just everybody. What's your advice?
Don't be afraid to go for it. Do whatever interests you. Take a chance. Do what you want to do. Don't shoot anybody.
Yes.
Kelsey Grammer has summed that up so well. While it's tempting to play it safe, the more we're willing to risk, the more alive we are. In the end, what we regret most are the chances we never took.
And that's exactly right. Another thing of advice is, if you have love, that's the most important thing.
Right on, right on.
As long as you have love, you're going to be all right.
Beautiful. David, thank you for sharing your spirit with us today. We're honored and we're so grateful to you.
It's been a thrill to sit on the green bench with you and sense some of your spirit, your enthusiasm. I love a life that's lived well, and you certainly are an example. Blessings on you.
It's been my pleasure.
And ours too, David. Thank you. Lloyd and I are so looking forward to our next chat with Schlegel Village's retirement and long-term care home resident, Ruth White. We're going to buckle up for some cross-Canada travels and more. And like any good road trip, we'll share stories along the way. So come along for the ride. Just subscribe for additional episodes every 2 weeks, and we'll let you know as soon as they're up. Share your thoughts and opinions on social media using #ElderWisdom to help others find us on this green bench. And please, just take a moment to rate and review the Elder Wisdom podcast. And if it's easier, go to elderwisdom.ca to find the link. And while you're there, be sure and take the Elder Wisdom Pledge. It only takes a moment, it feels good, and it helps shine a light on something we should all be thinking about. I'm Erin Davis, and on behalf of Lloyd Hetherington, thank you for sharing in these life stories. And we'll talk to you again soon, because your seat on the green bench is ready and waiting.
Elder Wisdom, Stories from the Green Bench, is brought to you by Schlegel Villages, a complete continuum of care, offering independent living to long-term care, celebrating and honoring the wisdom of the elder. To learn more about us, please go to our website, schlegelvillages.com.